We have been hearing the name of Elmy Bermejo, and we're very honored to have her as our keynote speaker this afternoon. Elmy is a representative to Region 9 from the Secretary, the Department of Labor, and she's going to talk to us about the Department of Labor initiatives for U.S. women and their families, and more. Really give us an insight. And then she's going to moderate a roundtable, but let me give you a little bit of insight into the caliber of Elmy. She has served as prior to this position she has now, and we welcome her back to San Francisco. She is here, a long-time resident. By the way, her family owns the restaurant, Tommy's Restaurant. And she can tell you more about that. But we used to joke, you don't just own it, you work it. But prior to this position as a regional representative for the Secretary of Labor, Elmy served as Director of Intergovernmental Affairs at the Department of Labor in Washington, D.C. She is dedicated to award-winning public service for more than 25 years. She was California Deputy Secretary for External Affairs and Consumer Services Agency, a great appointment that they made. And she also served as a special assistant to Senators Don Parada and John Burton, as well as others. Elmy's community and civic involvement includes the California Commission on the Status of Women, Hope's Hispanic, which is Hispanics Organized for Political Equality. She has executive leadership from there, the Women's Foundation of California, as well as service on the board of Maldives, complete count for census 2010. I looked everywhere. Feed the Hunger, and we have the illustrious Patty Chang here, can tell us more about that, and Transparent Democracy. Right now, Elmy also currently serves on the advisory committee of ELLA's, which is Latin Mentoring Institute, and Emerge. And may I say, that's just a quickie look at what she does. We're very honored to have Elmy Bermejo now speak to us.
Thank you, Marilyn. I am so honored to be here and to be with all of you today because, as Kathleen said, I got back to California about a little over 3 months ago after being in Washington, D.C. for 4.5 years. And first of all, also a shout out to all the winners because Krishanti, your remarks made me speechless, and I dare to dream that. And I hope we all do. Also, I saw when I was coming in, George Gascon with his lightsaber as the Jedi Knight Award. And also, with Marilyn Mondihar, it's nice to see her, and as well as Jeannie McCovey. Thank you for being here, all of you, and to all the wonderful honorees for all the work that you do day in and day out, and not just in, spurts, but it's continuing and dedicated and committed work. As I was saying, I got back here 3 months ago after being in Washington, D.C. for 4.5 years, and I have to tell you that when I first went to D.C., I got there and I started on my exit strategy. And after, because if you don't do that, you could stay there for 20 years. And after Snowmageddon, I really thought God was talking to me, go home. There were Snowmageddon, there was tornadoes, there was an earthquake, and I remember being in the Labor Department as the earthquake happened, and people thought, oh, it's a terrorist attack. I said, no, I think it's a 5.4 earthquake. And they were like, oh my God, listen to the Californian. So all of those things, so you can imagine how glad I am to be back. But I got the privilege of serving for our first Secretary of Labor, Hilda Solis, whom all you know. And she left the department to run and is now the supervisor-elect for Los Angeles County with 70% of the vote. So she's going to be, sworn in December. And she follows in the footsteps of Gloria Molina. And I say that because Gloria Molina was one of the very first, certainly with women, with the Latino community, first Latina to be in the assembly, and certainly to that post in as supervisor of Los Angeles. And she actually recruited Hilda Solis to. So when we talk about the leadership of women, is let's not leave anybody behind. And then I also worked for, we had an acting, Hilda left, I worked for Acting Secretary Seth Harris, who knew everything there was to know operationally about the Department of Labor. And now I have the privilege and honor of working with Secretary Tom Perez. They call him Perez. Perez here, Perez in the East Coast. But he's a great man. He worked for the Department of Justice under Eric Holder as the Associate Attorney General for Civil Rights. So he brings that voice to the Department of Labor, and certainly that lens about all the work, because it's about civil rights, it's about dignity, as Krishanti mentioned. Secretary Perez was sworn in as the nation's 26th Secretary of Labor last July. And one of the first few calls he made were not only to the president of the AFL-CIO, the largest labor union in the US, but also to the CEO of the United States Chamber of Commerce. Unlikely allies, you might say to yourself. But those two organizations do not always see eye to eye. The secretary's view was that in order to create jobs, you have to talk to both workers and job creators. And this week, that same week, he also met with Secretary of Commerce Penny Pritzker. Since then, the secretary has crisscrossed this country talking about the department's priorities, and some of these include raising the federal minimum wage, passing the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which I think after 10 years was finally signed by the president, and that's gonna revamp the workforce investment system. We also worked on paid leave, focusing on the many contributions that women make to our country. He's also rebranded the Department of Labor as the Department of Opportunity, because through the laws enforced by the department, the grants we make, the partnerships we forge, the department expands access to opportunity for workers in so many ways. While in Washington, I had the opportunity to work for many of the issues that impact this country, as I said, and our workforce. One of the issues certainly was, for me, working on the family summits. It was a partnership with the Department of Labor, the White House, and the Center for American Progress. And what it was we convened forums around this country on issues that impact families, reaching out and listening to and lifting up local voices whose message and stories were carried back to Washington, which is where these forums culminated in the White House Summit on Working Families. There were 1,300 people, at least there, from the First Lady to the President, and certainly Leader Nancy Pelosi, Neera Tandem from Center for American Progress as well. At its core, the summits were about the hopes and aspirations of our neighbors, trying to secure a foothold in the middle class, about honest people who want nothing more than the chance to go as far as their hard work will take them. It was about expanding opportunity by rewarding responsibility and strengthening families. The summits discussed challenges we face today with changes in the economy, technology, cultural attitudes, gender roles, the demographics of the workforce, the structure of the American family, you name it, every issue was on the table. As these things have undergone a rapid transformation, the laws and policies governing work and family have remained static. They haven't caught up or evolved. As Secretary Perez likes to say, we live in a modern family society, but we still live by leave it to Beaver rules. We need to do more to give people the tools to be responsible employees and good parents so they don't have to choose between the families they love and the jobs they need. We need to make sure people are able to put food on the table, but also be at the table to eat dinner with your family, because the most important family value is time with your family. It all starts with rewarding hard work and responsibility with a fair wage that can support a family. Secretary Perez likes to give this example to bring this into focus. Since 1979, worker productivity has increased more than 90%. average wages for production and non-supervisory workers overall have barely budged. Workers are helping generate wealth and prosperity, but not sharing in it. They are receiving a smaller piece of the pie that they help bake. This is why the Secretary of Labor, the President, and his administration are all fighting hard to increase the federal minimum wage, which would be $10.10. And no one who works a full-time job in America should have to raise their family in poverty. But many people can't be there for their kids because they have to work 2 or 3 jobs. Many have to resort to food stamps and other forms of public assistance just to survive. The purchasing power of the minimum wage is 20% less than it was in the 1980s. It is time to give America a raise, as the president has said. Workers need it. Forward-looking businesses embrace it. A majority of the American people support it, and many states and localities like San Francisco are already doing it. I don't know if many of you have seen or heard the president's weekly address. There's usually an address about a pending issue or an announcement that the White House is making. The White House started doing these White House messages in Spanish as well. And it was a way to give some of the appointees an opportunity, to highlight the work that we were doing. So many times you're at the Labor Department, I know whatever lunch date you make with a colleague goes by the wayside, there's 3 meetings, and there goes lunch. And then you can't go to a reception because you're at your office until 8 o'clock at night. And so these opportunities to really do the message was a way to highlight the work of some of the appointees. I had the honor and privilege of being asked to do the message for the White House when they did it on minimum wage and when they talked about highlighting the work of women. And everybody thought, oh my God, they picked her, they know her work. No, it was a coincidence. However, it was a great opportunity. And, because it gave me an opportunity to give the president's address, and then you get to be on the White House website, which is really cool, and which is how my family finally figured out, oh, I guess that's what she's doing. So, the economy has yet to catch up with so many realities, and too many women face outdated workforce policies that hold them back. And this was also one of the emphasis when we talk about equal pay and some of the different initiatives that the department has, and we've been working on for many, many years. So we were thrilled that when the president started mentioning in his State of the Union that it was really going to go somewhere, because all of a sudden our assistant secretaries, our secretary was meeting with OMB to talk about, what was the message going to be. And when we heard it was about minimum wage, it was just putting really the issues of working men and women finally front and center, because with the White House's backing, we could really move ahead. And even in different cities have different initiatives, which the White House is monitoring. And my team in Washington kept track of every city, every state, where they were on the minimum wage, who was supporting. And we had calls with legislators from Hawaii to Puerto Rico to talk about these issues so that we wouldn't lose the momentum. And when we were talking about the whole equal pay, I have to tell you that we have a great public affairs office. And the public affairs office came up with a poster, and the president quoted. And the quote was that a woman deserves equal pay for equal work, that it's time to do away with workplace policies that belong in a Mad Men episode. And many of you who know that did that. So I have a visual. And I think I have enough for some people, but this was it. Instead of a phone, it's an iPhone. So this is our campaign for equal pay. So I'll make sure that all our panelists get this. And if those of you, if I don't have enough and you want some, let me know. I think we still have some at the office. So as I said, at the Department of Labor, we are thrilled that the issues of the workforce are front and center. But it is more than just about wages. There are a whole host of issues that have yet to really come to the forefront of a national agenda. Issues like childcare, paid leave, flexibility, work-life balance, and family-friendly workplaces. And these summits, the idea behind that is that every community could really get on board. And even though the summit ended in DC, that organizations like WIN continue to carry the mantle of equality for all women and all families. As Leader Pelosi says, and I like to quote her often, and I know my boss does too, when women succeed, America succeeds, and indeed, the world succeeds. I look forward to working with all of you on these issues in my role as a regional representative for the U.S. Department of Labor and for the Secretary. My region is California, Arizona, Nevada, Hawaii, Utah, Guam, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, and American Samoa. We have interest there, and in fact, it's always nice when somebody from the CNMI comes and talks about grants, et cetera. And that's another thing we need to talk about, grants and opportunities, et cetera. So I know that we can continue the conversation going. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. And I look forward to talking to you and to continuing to work and be part of this wonderful network with Win, Marilyn, Kawa, and all of you here. Thank you.